Beneath the golden waves of endless desert, where sun scorches silence into every grain of sand, lies a secret the world has long forgotten. The Sahara, the Gobi, the Atacama. These are not wastelands, they are burial grounds, not of bones, but of memory. Civilizations once thrived here, rose to glory, carved stone into temples, and mapped the stars with knowledge that now seems impossibly advanced. And then, they vanished. We are taught to see deserts as dead zones, void of life, void of history. But what if that's the illusion? What if the real mirage is time itself? In every gust of wind that shapes a dune, whispers of forgotten voices ride across centuries. In every ruin half swallowed by sand, there lingers a question mainstream history has yet to answer. How could entire cities, entire peoples simply disappear? Not just from maps, but from memory. Perhaps they didn't disappear at all. Perhaps they were buried by cataclysm, by conquest, or by design. Perhaps the deserts of the world are not places we simply overlooked, but places we were meant to forget. There are maps that depict rivers flowing through what is now dry, cracked earth. Legends of vibrant oases now hidden beneath lifeless terrain. Artifacts found deep under the sand, tools, bones, even temples that suggest history is far older and far stranger than we've been led to believe. So we must ask, is what we call history just the layer we can see? The sanitized, convenient layer that fits into textbooks and timelines? Or is there something else, something deeper waiting beneath? This journey is not just across continents, it's across paradigms, across what we accept and what we've been conditioned to ignore. The sands do not lie, they only conceal, and what they hide may change everything we think we know. To most, a desert is a place of absence, no water, no life, no meaning. But in truth, the desert is not a void, it is a vault. A sealed chamber where time slows, where secrets sleep undisturbed for thousands of years. Unlike the jungles that consume ruins in vines or the oceans that grind stone into sand, the desert preserves. Its arid breath halts decay. Its shifting dunes entomb entire worlds. Cities that once echoed with voices are now frozen beneath the silence of centuries. Structures lie intact beneath layers of wind-blown sediment, untouched by weather, untouched by war. In Egypt, in Sudan, in Saudi Arabia, satellite scans have revealed geometric anomalies, lines too straight to be natural, patterns buried just beneath the surface. Are they roads, walls, foundations of civilizations yet to be excavated? Mainstream archaeology often waves these off as geological quirks or dismisses them due to lack of funding. But the desert doesn't fabricate symmetry. Nature rarely builds in perfect rectangles. Why then is there resistance to digging deeper? Perhaps because what lies beneath these sands does not fit the accepted story. Perhaps because the deeper we dig, the more we find things that shouldn't exist. Too advanced, too old, too out of place. The desert is patient. It waits while we argue, but it remembers. And for those willing to look beyond the surface, to question what we've been told, it offers something no textbook ever will. The evidence is there, not in myth, but in the very earth. And it's only just beginning to be unearthed. There is a legend whispered across the sands of North Africa, a tale passed from caravan to caravan, spoken under starlit skies and etched into the memory of nomadic tribes. It speaks of a city so radiant, so otherworldly, that it came to be known as Zerzura, the oasis of little birds. A white city, hidden deep in the Sahara, guarded by black giants, said the Bedouins, and filled with treasures untouched since the days of ancient pharaohs. For centuries, the tale was treated as little more than desert folklore, a mirage of the mind, born from thirst and sunstroke. But in the early 20th century, something changed. Real men set out to find it. In the 1930s, British explorer Ralph Bagnold and Hungarian adventurer Laszlo Almasi, yes, the real man behind the English Patient, ventured into the Libyan desert with primitive jeeps, maps drawn by Arab guides, and an unshakable conviction that Zerzura was not a myth. Almasi claimed to have found ancient inscriptions and valleys untouched by modern hands. He even documented a green wadi in a place no map acknowledged, fueling belief that Zerzura might lie hidden nearby. Mainstream historians, of course, dismissed these claims. No definitive ruins, no city found, case closed. But then came the satellites. In recent years, high-resolution satellite imagery has revealed odd patterns in the sands of western Egypt and eastern Libya. Rectilinear shapes, unnatural alignments, disturbances beneath dunes stretching for miles. Some researchers believe these anomalies point to man-made structures buried under layers of sediment. Yet still, the official narrative holds firm. Zerzura is a legend, a ghost city, a desert dream. But the persistence of the legend is striking. Bedouin tribes, separated by distance and dialect, tell strikingly similar stories. Not of gold or fantasy, but of a real place. Abandoned, yes, but once alive. And curiously, many of these oral accounts predate European exploration by centuries. If Zerzura never existed, why has it never died? Perhaps the truth is inconvenient. A city that doesn't fit into the clean lines of Egyptian or Roman history. A civilization that rose and fell outside the sanctioned timelines. Perhaps it was a place of knowledge, a waypoint for traders and mystics from cultures long erased. Or perhaps Zerzura remains lost because someone, somewhere, wants it that way. In the face of denial, the sands remain still. But just beneath them, something waits. Something carved in stone. Something ancient. Something white. In the heart of the Mauritanian desert lies a geological enigma, a vast swirling formation so large it can only be fully seen from space. Locals call it the Eye of Africa. Scientists call it the Richat Structure, but some call it something else entirely, Atlantis. From above, the Richat Structure appears as a series of concentric rings carved into the earth like the fingerprint of a forgotten god. Measuring nearly 30 miles across, it matches in startling ways the dimensions described by Plato in his tale of the lost city of Atlantis. Concentric circles of land and water, protected by mountains to the north, open to the sea to the south. Coincidence, say geologists. A collapsed dome naturally eroded over time, nothing more. But others aren't so sure. Why does this landform align so well with Plato's account, written over 2,000 years ago? Why do ancient maps place Atlantis in this very region of North Africa, rather than beneath the sea? Could it be that the idea of a sunken island was never meant to be taken literally but metaphorically? Atlantis not drowned but buried by time and shifting earth? Satellite images reveal no ports, no buildings, but erosion and shifting sands can erase even mighty cities. If the Richat Structure once held life, its bones may lie deep beneath the sediment, waiting for the tools or the will to unearth them. Myth, geology, misinterpretation, or something else? The eye stares back, silent and vast, a monument without inscription, a question in stone, and sometimes questions are more powerful than answers. Long before the rise of empires, deep within the Arabian Peninsula, there stood a city known as Ubar, a place of immense wealth, towering columns and unshakable pride. It is written of in the Quran as Iram of the Pillars, a city unlike any other whose people defied divine law and reveled in their arrogance. And then, as if swallowed by the wrath of the earth itself, it vanished. Arab Bedouins spoke of Ubar in hushed tones. The city, they said, had been struck down by God, its pride punished, its palaces reduced to dust. For centuries, Ubar lived only in myth, a cautionary tale told around desert fires. Until NASA stepped in the early 1990s, using satellite imaging to study ancient trade routes, researchers identified faint trails converging in the Dhofar region of Oman. These trails, old caravan paths of the frankincense trade, led to a singular point long buried beneath the sands. Excavations revealed collapsed structures, limestone walls, and a massive sinkhole, suggesting not just ruin but a sudden catastrophic collapse. Had Ubar truly fallen into the earth? Mainstream archaeologists offered tempered conclusions. An outpost, perhaps, a fortress. But local traditions insisted this was Ubar, the city of divine punishment. The pieces aligned too closely. The legends, the trade, the architecture, but again, skepticism prevailed. Because accepting Ubar's truth would mean confronting more than a ruin. It would mean entertaining the possibility that some myths hold historical weight, that ancient scriptures contain echoes of literal events, and perhaps more disturbingly, it would mean that entire cities can disappear in an instant, not just from maps, but from collective memory. Ubar was once called the Atlantis of the sands, not just for its disappearance, but for what it represented: humanity's ambition, its fallibility, and the unrelenting power of the earth to bury what offends it. And now, the desert guards its remains, watching, waiting. The Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter, is the largest uninterrupted sand desert on Earth, a place where the horizon bleeds into sky and nothing moves but wind. To the untrained eye, it is barren, lifeless, forgotten. But the Bedouins know better. They speak of lights beneath the dunes, whispers after dusk, and the sense felt but never seen that something ancient lies just below. Archaeologists have long avoided deep exploration here. The terrain is harsh, shifting, almost hostile to modern equipment. But that hasn't stopped rumors. Satellite scans hint at linear ridges and circular depressions, anomalies that suggest architecture. Others claim foreign governments have blocked excavations or removed findings without record. Why the silence? Some believe the Rub al-Khali holds remnants of pre-Islamic civilizations that contradict official timelines. Others whisper of temples, structures, even artifacts, evidence of a forgotten chapter in humanity's story. The sands may be empty, but the silence is full. In the vast white salt flats of Gujarat's Rann of Kutch, surrounded by desolation and silence, lies the skeleton of a city that should not exist. Dholavira, once a thriving Harappan metropolis, sits in a region where rainfall is scarce and life is difficult. And yet, over 4,000 years ago, this city flourished. Dholavira wasn't primitive, it was advanced, meticulously planned with complex urban zoning, massive reservoirs, and an unparalleled water management system. Engineers of the Indus Valley civilization built this city not around a river but in a dry landscape, where they harvested and stored monsoon rains with a precision that rivals modern methods. But this raises a haunting question. Was this land always a desert? Something doesn't add up. Why would a civilization so ahead of its time build a megacity in the middle of nowhere, unless it wasn't nowhere back then? Some geologists argue that climate shifts and tectonic movements altered the region dramatically. What was once fertile may have slowly turned arid. Others believe something more sudden happened. Perhaps a drought, perhaps the rerouting of rivers, or even a cataclysmic event lost to history. And then, abandonment. The silence of Dholavira is palpable. Streets once bustling are now hollow. The stone structures stand like ghosts of an order we no longer understand. No records tell us why they left. No evidence of war, no signs of struggle, just a quiet, collective disappearance. Mainstream history brushes past the mystery, framing it as another lost settlement in the rise and fall of civilizations. But for those who stand there, staring at the city that should never have existed in such a place, the question remains, what did Dholavira know that we've forgotten? Across the Thar Desert, where the heat blurs the line between earth and sky, lies the faint memory of a river that once gave birth to a civilization. The Saraswati, revered in the Vedas as a sacred, mighty river, is now nowhere to be seen. Yet modern satellite imagery tells a different story. Beneath the desert sands, an ancient dried riverbed snakes its way through the land, too massive, too intentional to ignore. Along its path, archaeologists have discovered dozens of sites, abandoned settlements, buried cities, and crumbling temples. Some predate the Indus Valley civilization. Many remain unexcavated, unnamed, unknown. This isn't just a forgotten river, it's a forgotten history. The Vedas describe the Saraswati as the cradle of knowledge, home to sages and seers, and yet Western academia long dismissed it as mythical, fictional, symbolic. Only when satellite data aligned with ancient scripture did the story begin to shift. But why has this discovery not upended textbooks? Why are children still taught that India's great river civilizations began with the Indus and Ganges, ignoring the one that may have come before them all? Some say politics, others say preservation of a narrative. Still others point to something deeper, that these cities hold knowledge too disruptive for the frameworks we've accepted. The Saraswati didn't vanish, it was buried, and with it, an entire lineage of civilization that challenges what we thought we knew about human history in South Asia. The desert doesn't lie, it only conceals, and slowly its secrets are beginning to surface. At the edge of China's vast and unforgiving Taklamakan Desert, buried beneath centuries of shifting sands, lies the spectral memory of a city that once connected the world. Loulan, a bustling Silk Road hub, home to traders, travelers, and rulers, is now a lifeless ruin, swallowed whole by time and dust. Over 2,000 years ago, Loulan thrived as a strategic outpost on the ancient trade route linking China to Central Asia and the West. It saw goods, ideas, and cultures pass through its gates. And then, seemingly overnight, it disappeared, not slowly, not gradually, suddenly. When explorers rediscovered its remains in the early 20th century, they were stunned. Amid the dunes, they found not just crumbled structures, but the dead, mummies, eerily well preserved by the desert's dryness. But these weren't typical Chinese remains. Some had European features, blonde hair, high cheekbones, tall statures. They wore woven fabrics that seemed closer to Celtic craftsmanship than Han Dynasty tradition. The implications were profound. Was Loulan a multicultural nexus? Did East and West connect far earlier than history suggests? And if so, what else has been erased from our understanding of early global contact? Among the most controversial discoveries were texts written in ancient scripts, hybrid burial customs, and artifacts that didn't quite belong, traded goods from thousands of miles away, sealed in tombs beneath desert rock. These findings weren't widely reported. Some were locked away, others quietly reclassified. And then came the restrictions. Chinese authorities declared many of these sites off-limits, citing preservation. But to independent researchers, the move felt more like containment, a way to control a story that didn't fit the narrative. Loulan remains a ghost city, its silence louder than its ruins. It asks questions that modern institutions aren't ready to answer. Not just about history, but about how much of it has been buried on purpose. Scattered across China's western deserts are thousands of ancient tombs, many still unexcavated, some barely mapped. From the sands of the Tarim Basin to the edges of the Gobi, burial mounds lie like forgotten punctuation marks in a long-lost language of empire and memory. But unlike Egypt's celebrated pyramids or Rome's catacombs, these tombs are mostly silent, not just in presence but in policy. The Chinese government has sealed off many of these sites, often forbidding excavation or limiting foreign access. Their official reason? Preservation. But the questions linger. What lies inside those untouched chambers? What truths, what contradictions to the official dynastic timelines might be uncovered? And why, in a country proud of its ancient heritage, are so many chapters kept hidden? Some speculate these tombs hold cultural anomalies, foreign DNA, unexplainable artifacts, relics from vanished cultures that challenge state-approved narratives. In the deserts of China, secrecy is the new sand, and the past remains entombed, not just beneath earth but behind closed doors. Stretching along the coast of modern-day Peru lies a parched and unforgiving landscape, sun-bleached, wind-scoured, and dry to the bone. Yet in this desolation, ancient hands built cities, not villages, not camps, but full-fledged metropolises, Nazca, Caral, and others, each more puzzling than the last. Caral, for instance, is one of the oldest known cities in the Americas, predating the pyramids of Egypt. It featured stepped pyramids, sunken plazas, and complex urban planning. But why here, in a coastal desert with virtually no rainfall? Conventional archaeology offers practical explanations: irrigation, proximity to rivers, maritime trade. But it doesn't explain the precision of their astronomy, the sacred geometries encoded into city layouts, or the spiritual obsession with the sky. And then there's Nazca, home to vast geoglyphs etched into the desert floor. Monkeys, birds, humanoid figures, even what appear to be runways stretching for hundreds of feet. These weren't doodles. They were massive undertakings, visible only from above. Who were they meant for? Mainstream explanations focus on ritualistic or agricultural functions. But the symbolism runs deeper. These cities were not simply surviving in the desert. They were built because of it. As if isolation was part of the design, as if the desert wasn't a limitation but a veil. Were these cities trying to reach the heavens, or hide something from the world? Today, most people drive past these ruins without understanding what they're seeing. Yet beneath the sand lies a civilization that defied its environment and dared to build in the middle of nowhere, leaving behind mysteries we've barely begun to grasp. In the sun-baked plateaus of the American Southwest, remnants of an ancient people still whisper through stone and canyon. Known today as the Anasazi, they once built vast cliff dwellings, ceremonial kivas, and interconnected road systems across what is now Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. But their name isn't even theirs. Anasazi is a Navajo word meaning ancient enemies, and their disappearance is just as cryptic as their legacy. They built in stone, meticulously, enduringly, carving homes into cliffsides like Mesa Verde, aligning structures with celestial events, and creating labyrinthine settlements such as Chaco Canyon, whose roads stretched for miles in perfectly straight lines, seemingly leading nowhere. Then suddenly they vanished. Mainstream theories blame prolonged droughts, social conflict, or resource exhaustion. But oral traditions hint at something more metaphysical: dark omens, spiritual imbalance, a forced exodus. Some suggest environmental changes triggered not just collapse but deliberate abandonment, as if something sacred had been violated. Others theorize that these were once fertile lands, later turned to desert by unseen forces, be it climate cycles or human misuse. But some believe the abandonment wasn't just physical, it was ritual, a sealing off, a retreat underground or into other realms of consciousness. To this day, archaeologists puzzle over the astronomical precision, the isolated locations, and the lack of conquest or war in the archaeological record. It's as if the Anasazi walked away, not out of necessity but intention. They left their cities behind like messages in stone, carved not for survival, but remembrance. And in the silence of the desert, those messages still echo. Scattered across the world's deserts are ruins that defy logic and in some cases even physics. Stones too massive to move by known ancient means, cuts too precise for the rudimentary tools of the time, alignments too astronomically exact to be coincidence. These are not the kinds of structures one expects to find in harsh, barren environments. Yet there they are. In the deserts of Egypt, we find not just pyramids, but structures beneath the sand made from granite and diorite, stone so hard modern drills struggle to cut it. And yet, there are doorways carved with machine-like precision. In Bolivia's high deserts at Pumapunku, enormous blocks are shaped with interlocking geometries, laser-smooth finishes, and boreholes that match no known tool from any local culture. These anomalies aren't isolated. Across North Africa, the Middle East, and even parts of Central Asia, there are desert ruins whose construction echoes the megalithic mystery of places like Baalbek, Göbekli Tepe, or Machu Picchu. What if these deserts weren't always deserts? What if these sites are remnants of a pre-cataclysmic world, built when these lands were fertile, their people advanced, and their knowledge unrecorded or erased? Mainstream historians chalk it up to skill, patience, and rudimentary tools. But experimental archaeologists and rogue researchers argue something else, that we're missing a piece of the puzzle, either a forgotten global civilization or technologies that have vanished completely from our historical record. Some go further, suggesting non-human influence, not aliens in silver ships, but perhaps a species or civilization long lost. One that understood materials, geometry, and energy in ways we no longer do. It's a dangerous proposition for academia. It opens doors that challenge the linear story of human progress. But the evidence isn't going away. As the desert sand shifts, it continues to unveil structures that shouldn't be there, and stones that whisper of a forgotten intelligence waiting to be rediscovered. In the dry heart of Cappadocia, Turkey, lies a subterranean labyrinth known as Derinkuyu, a city carved deep into volcanic rock, extending over 18 levels underground. It could house 20,000 people. It had ventilation shafts, wells, communal spaces, even temples. But the greatest mystery isn't how it was built, it's why. Why would anyone build downward in a region where land was plentiful? Derinkuyu isn't alone. Across Anatolia and in desert regions of the Middle East and North Africa, there are whispers, unconfirmed, sometimes suppressed, of similar underground complexes. Some are dismissed as storage or emergency shelters, but what if they served another purpose? Protection from invaders, from sunlight, from something worse? In deserts, digging is illogical, water is scarce, ventilation is a challenge, and yet entire communities moved underground, suggesting either desperation or knowledge of something we've forgotten. Were they hiding or preserving something? And if they built below, what else still lies buried there unseen? In most places, time moves forward. It wears things down, crumbles stone, erodes memory, buries the past. But in the desert, time does something different. It pauses. Under the sands, time doesn't just hide things, it preserves them. A temple buried by 1,000 storms may look as if it were abandoned yesterday. A mummy sealed in dryness can still wear the thread of its last robe. In this strange equation, destruction becomes preservation. After a desert storm passes, when the wind lifts its veil, something ancient may suddenly return. Part of a wall, a carving, a forgotten staircase, as if the earth itself decided to reveal a memory. These moments remind us that history is not linear but layered, and the sands are its pages. There's a strange poetry to this duality. The desert erases, and yet it reveals. It destroys, and yet it protects. It's a vault and a mirror, a destroyer, and an archivist. Every grain of sand that buries a city is the same grain that might protect its secrets for thousands of years. We think of ruins as remnants of the past, but what if they're messages, left for a time when we'd be ready to see them? What if these sites aren't just historical, they're intentional? To walk a desert is to walk through suspended time. To stand over a buried civilization is to stand above memory, memory not yet awakened. In the shifting light of a desert sunset, you realize the sands are not still. They move with purpose, revealing and concealing according to a rhythm we don't understand. Perhaps the past isn't gone. Perhaps it's just waiting. For centuries, we relied on shovels and whispers to uncover lost cities. But now, with satellites orbiting silently above, the Earth is giving up its secrets faster than ever before. From space, patterns emerge, lines too straight to be natural. Grids beneath dunes, rectangles, circles, entire city layouts invisible to the naked eye. Technologies like LiDAR and infrared imaging can strip away vegetation or sand cover, revealing what has been hidden for millennia. In Egypt, satellite scans have uncovered buried pyramids and temples in places long considered empty. In the Amazon, jungle cities erased by time are now reappearing. And across the deserts, from Arabia to the Andes, long-lost settlements are flickering back into view. And yet, not all discoveries make the news. Some are classified, some are quietly removed from public databases. Some spark brief excitement, then silence. Why? What makes one lost city worth celebrating and another worth forgetting again? Could it be that certain ruins raise questions too uncomfortable for official narratives? That some findings don't align with accepted timelines or cultural ownership or political control? With every satellite pass, the Earth becomes more transparent. But what we do with that information reveals more about us than it does about the past. We are now gods of perspective, able to see what was once unknowable. But the question is, will we look deeper or will we look away? In the end, the satellites show us that the sands are not just nature's cover. They are the veil between the world we know and the world we forgot. In a world of supposed progress and open knowledge, it's easy to assume that history is neutral, driven only by facts, guided by science. But the truth is far messier. History is curated, sanitized, controlled. Time and again, discoveries that could shift our understanding of the past have been ignored, rejected, or quietly buried. Not under sand, but under bureaucracy. Consider the archaeologist who unearthed an out-of-place artifact that didn't fit the known timeline, only to find funding revoked, papers rejected, and doors closed. Or the linguist who uncovered inscriptions suggesting cultural contact centuries before it was possible. Silenced, dismissed as fringe. These aren't isolated incidents, they're patterns. Whistleblowers from within institutions, museums, universities, even national heritage agencies have spoken of discoveries locked away, of digs shut down when evidence didn't match expected results, of academic gatekeepers who determine not just what is true, but what is allowed to be true. Why? Because history isn't just about the past, it's about power. The story we tell about our origins shapes our identity, our politics, our worldview. To change the past is to challenge the foundations of nations, religions, and ideologies, and so uncomfortable truths are quietly erased. Ruins that imply ancient advanced knowledge, labeled religious sites and left unstudied. Structures that predate accepted civilization, rebranded as natural formations. Questions that point toward a non-linear timeline of human development, laughed out of academia before they're even heard. This isn't science, it's editorial control. And the price we pay is profound. We lose not just knowledge, but wonder. We stop asking the big questions. We forget how to be curious. And perhaps that's the point. Because a public that believes everything important has already been discovered is easier to manage than one that demands to know what's been hidden. The war on forgotten history is not waged with armies. It's waged with silence, and silence is winning. There's an old saying, "Who controls the past controls the future." But less often asked is, why? Why does it matter so much what we believe about our origins? Because our understanding of the past shapes what we think is possible. Who we were defines who we think we are. And those who control that story control the limits of imagination. If the past was more advanced, more connected, more spiritual than we're told, what does that say about our present? If civilizations rose and fell in cycles, mastering arts we've forgotten, what does that mean for our future? To rewrite history is to rewrite reality, and that power is not distributed equally. Governments, religious institutions, and academic elites all have something to lose in an uncontrolled narrative. Truth becomes dangerous when it opens doors. So they offer comfort, clean timelines, easy answers. But history is not clean. It is complex, chaotic, and unfinished. And perhaps that's exactly why it's worth fighting for. You walk across the earth every day, on sidewalks, in forests, across hills and fields. But have you ever wondered what lies just beneath your feet? Not just soil, not just stone, but memory. Right now, somewhere beneath the crust of this world, beyond the next dune, or even beneath your own city, there may lie another city, older, quieter, forgotten. Buried not just by time, but by the silence that followed it. The ruins we've uncovered so far, Dholavira, Loulan, Zerzura, Ubar, these are only the loudest whispers, the ones that manage to speak through the sand. But for everyone we find, there are dozens still sleeping, their names lost to wind, their stories erased before they could ever be recorded. And yet, they still breathe. A fragment of pottery, a corner of a wall, a line too straight to be nature. These are the echoes, the subtle reminders that the past is not dead. It's simply waiting. Waiting for eyes that will see, for minds that will question, for curiosity strong enough to challenge the idea that we already know everything. Because what if we don't? What if the true shape of our history is not a line, but a spiral? A cycle of growth, collapse, and rediscovery? What if there were civilizations more advanced than we imagine? Who made the same mistakes? Who left behind warnings we've yet to uncover? And what if their cities were never meant to last forever but to be found? The sands shift, the winds speak, the earth remembers. And now the question is not whether lost cities exist, but whether we're still brave enough to listen when they call to us. Because the city that waits might not be far. It might be under your feet, and it might be waiting for you.